Man, isn't it nice to have a guy like Kristaps Porzingis? But we all know he was not the story of the night. What's up, everyone, and welcome in to your Celtics source, home of your 2-0 Boston Celtics. Celtics get the Game 2 win without Jason Tatum, 109-101, and it was a team effort. Jaylen Brown was, fantastic in this game. He had 36 points, playing just 30 minutes, I believe. Sorry, he played 42 minutes, but 36 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, just 3 turnovers. A couple of those were late in the game when the game was pretty much out of reach. Orlando did get a couple points, in garbage time. But Jaylen Brown, if you didn't know that he had this knee injury, you would think he was playing at full energy, 100% effort. He was just flawless in this game. Like, you needed someone to step up with Jason Tatum not there. And both Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum had poor shooting nights in game one. And so what does Jaylen Brown do? He responds with maybe his best playoff game of his career. And he's doing that at, one would think, only 70% with that knee injury, but it seems to not bother him. Maybe Joe Mazzulla said something to him before the game, like, we're going to need you tonight. You need to play through it. Because he was just fantastic. And funny enough, he was only a +9 in this game. Kristaps Porzingis, which we'll talk about in a second, was a +15. And I mean, Kristaps Porzingis had a unbelievable game. But Jaylen Brown, you know, if Jason Tatum is out for a couple games, I'm not worried. Jaylen Brown can carry this team. Kristaps Porzingis can, you know, the two of them can carry this team through this series. Let Jason Tatum rest. It would be nice for Jaylen Brown to get some rest, but obviously, I think Jason Tatum's wrist injury is a little bit more pressing than Jaylen Brown's knee soreness. Um, but like, let Jason Tatum sit in Game 3, uh, and then you'll have a couple days off as well. So if Jason Tatum gets 7 days off here, that's huge for him. And you don't need him to come back when you know you have when you're playing an Orlando Magic team that just, I mean, cannot put the ball in the basket. I mean, I'm looking at their shooting numbers here. You know, their free throws is one thing, right? Shooting just 62% from on free throws, 15 of 24. So they actually took a lot of free throws in this game. This was a physical game, as we knew it would be. Um, right? There was a play early where Al Horford gets basically thrown to the ground by, I believe it was Cardwell Pope, KCP, who sort of hits him from behind as they're running up the floor. And there was a little bit of a scrum there, but like, just the physicality, whether it was being called or not, was out of this world. And we knew it was going to be this, right? We saw it in game one, and I think in this game, and actually the intensity went up a whole nother level. But the Celtics were ready for it. They didn't, complain. When they got pushed around, they pushed back. And so it was a very even game. Low scoring. In terms of actual possessions, the score was actually much higher because of all the free throw shooting. Like 24 free throws, as I mentioned, for Orlando. Celtics had 33 free throws, so a pretty big difference. That might have been the difference in the game in terms of the scoring, while the Celtics won by 9. But the real reason is the 3-point shooting. Orlando shot 7 for 29 from behind the arc. Good for just 32%. Nope, 24%. Which, I mean, like, Paul Banchero, he was fantastic in this game. You get 32 points from him, 6 of 11 from the line. So, part of that problem at the free throw line. But 2 of 6 from 3, which is not, I mean, it's not that bad. You would like for him to make one more if you're the Magic. 12 for 25 overall. So, pretty inefficient. The Celtics were making it hard for him. He does get 9 rebounds, 7 assists. He'd be averaging a triple-double if you didn't have Franz Wagner going 1 for 7 from 3. You have KCP going 0 of 6 from 3. And then, nobody on the bench made a shot. Anthony Black 0 for 2. Caleb Houston 0 for 2 as well. And nobody else attempted a 3. And that's sort of the problem, right? You have this, all their big three showed up in this game, right? You have Paul Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Wendell Carter Jr. They all had double-digit scoring, right? 32 for Paulo, 25 for Franz, 16 for Carter, but you don't get any meaningful contributions from anyone else. Whereas for the Celtics, right, not only do you have Jaylen Brown at 36, Kristaps Porzingis at 20, and Derrick White for 17, which pretty much matches what Orlando was doing from those big three. But then you also have Jrue Holiday for 11. You have Payton Pritchard off the bench for 14 points. Right, Payton Pritchard scores 14 points. Luke Cornett 2 points, the only two that scored. But Orlando, has just 17 points total off their bench, and yes, it was one more than what the Celtics scored off the bench, but the Celtics only went 3 deep. The Magic went almost 7 deep off the bench. They almost played their whole lineup, played everyone except 2, and they only managed to score one more point than the Celtics bench. You're not going to win that game because the Celtics starters were just unbelievable. I think we have to talk about Kristaps Porzingis. Kristaps Porzingis, I mean, what a luxury it is to have him. This was a game, he got absolutely torn apart on one of the plays. Got a huge elbow from, I believe it was, might have been Bataze. I'm not quite sure who elbowed him, but he had blood all over his face. They give him a big Band-Aid, and he goes into the locker room, right? The whole crowd, I don't know what they were shouting. It sounded like, maybe not MVP, but, they were shouting his name the whole game, right? He comes back out just to shoot his free throws so he can stay in the game, because obviously if you don't shoot those free throws, you have to leave the game. But he shoots his free throws, knocks them down, then he goes back in the locker room. The crowd is still chanting his name. The crowd is chanting his name basically for the next 4 minutes straight with him in the locker room. The game's still going on. Brown in the meantime, Derrick White in the meantime going off, fantastic. And then he comes back out, with a much smaller Band-Aid, 5 stitches in his head, and blood all over the back of his head. His head was basically colored red with blood. But anyway, he comes back in the game, continues to shoot, or continues to play. The crowd just goes wild for him. And, it's just unbelievable that he has basically infinite tolerance for pain. Like, it doesn't matter whether he's getting a cut, whether he's punched in the head. He was just unbelievable going, taking the hits one after another, blood all over his face, and he did not care. And he finishes the game with a team. I think he was second on the team with, I believe, 20 points. Yep, 20 points for him, 10 rebounds. So basically, him and Jaylen Brown combined for 20 rebounds and make up for the rebounds that Jason Tatum would have gotten. So you didn't lose that aspect of it. You also have 5 assists from Jaylen Brown, 5 assists from Derrick White, 6 assists from Jrue Holiday. So you're making up for Jason Tatum's playmaking there, and obviously Jason Tatum didn't shoot well, and so you obviously make up for that. And so the team covered Jason Tatum's absence. Jason Tatum was there, fully supporting. He was standing up on every play. He had a little black, um, you know, guard on his wrist or whatever, or tape. Um, but apparently, right, it's a bone bruise, so it's just how much he can tolerate it. So it's not like there's anything you can do about it. He just has to rest and he can play. Apparently, he did, warm up earlier in the day, and he was doubtful and he couldn't do much, and so they said no for tonight, and maybe that is just cautionary. We do have to wait and watch. But what else do we have to talk about this game? I think we have to talk about Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday, both Jrue Holiday and Al Horford, they didn't have huge roles tonight. Jrue Holiday was obviously had a much bigger role in the playmaking side of it. Al Horford did get the start with Jason Tatum out. Oh, I forgot to mention he also had 10 rebounds, so 30 rebounds compared to them. Right, the Celtics had, I believe, if we look at the box score here, they had 13 offensive rebounds to the Magic's 7. So the Celtics were getting tons of extra chances, which allowed them, even if they missed the shot, to get a second chance, and that absolutely destroys the Magic team because they have a great defense, but when you get a second shot and then you can make it, and then the Magic have a hard time scoring on the other end, leads can basically be grown in like just 4 possessions, right? And that's what happened. The Celtics, you know, got up early. Then I believe the Magic came back. They got up got up early in the third quarter as well. They had another fast start to the third quarter. The Magic come back because obviously, it wasn't the Celtics getting cold. Just the Magic picked up the physicality and they were bowling their way. Paul Banchero started making some tough shots, and then the Celtics pull away for good. On just some elite shooting from Derrick White. Obviously, fourth quarter is Derrick White's clutch time. I don't know why he was not in the voting for clutch player of the year. Jason Tatum, funny enough, got 1 point. He was, I believe, like 16th, 17th in clutch rating. He's never going to get that because people just want to hate on him for clutch, even though he's the second best clutch player of all time statistically. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. 2 down, 14 to go. I will actually be doing a live, watch party, play-by-play commentary for Game 3, and then obviously a post-game show afterwards. So make sure to tune in for that. Make sure to follow me on social media. And until next time, go Celtics.